Thank you for tuning in to this new episode of All Allow It Nevada, the podcast that provides quick insights into Nevada's judicial education. I'm Anne-Marie Mayu, your host.
And I'm Seth Easley, your co-host.
And together we proudly represent the Supreme Court of Nevada Administrative Office of the Court's Judicial Branch Training Unit. Wow, that's a long title we got here. So in this episode, we're exploring the Forensic Assessment Services Triage Team, and we'll refer to it as FASTT. FASTT is a jail reentry program focused on diversion. And we are thrilled to welcome our respected guest, Cherylyn Rahr-Wood. Cherylyn is Regional Behavioral Health Coordinator at the Nevada Rural Hospital Partners. Welcome, Cherylyn.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Cherylyn, can you provide an overview of the Nevada FASTT program, including its objectives and the population it serves?
Absolutely. I think one thing that needs to be recognized with our FASTT program is we've been working on them for quite a while. It's not new to Nevada. I would probably say the last decade, we really kind of started looking at how do we work with our incarcerated to help them, especially as their first time, that first entry into the jail, helping them kind of understand that there are some programs and things like that outside of the jail that can help them. So the objective really is to divert them, give them some resources, noting that this program is voluntary only. We don't tell people who need to be in this program. It's not our job. It's not the jail's job to tell people who are in this program. It really is that individual to make that decision themselves. So when they are incarcerated and they're getting checked in, they get a slip of paper talking about the FASTT program. And it's then and there that they can say, yeah, I want to talk to a FASTT coordinator. And that goal really is to then start looking at that risk, needs, and responsibility of each individual person volunteering for this program, of what their needs are, at what level they are for potentially maybe those thought process and those beliefs and attitudes towards criminality, and changing their view on that.
So being different from, for instance, our drug courts, where our Nevada judge would say, we need you to go through this program to the offender, and it's mandated by the court. This being different, this is going to be the offender voluntarily going in and searching out, how this program can help them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it is voluntary. And it's up to them. We don't give legal advice. We state that in the beginning. There's no legal advice given with this program, as well as the treatment plan or the case plan that we create for them. There's no guarantee that they're going to follow that, but we hopefully provide them with that information for them to go, I'm ready to make a change. And then when they are released, they have that little docket of paper that says, here's things that you can do to help you move forward. The key really to this program is that when you do it voluntarily and you really are ready for that change happens better. When we mandate a lot of times, or we tell people what they need to do, there's that resistance of you're controlling my life. But I think when we give them the option, here it is on the table, it's up to you to take this. We don't come across saying that we're going to give legal advice or any of that. We try to empower people to say, take control of your life. And these are things that can help you do that. And then it's up to them.
Well, and I think that's true really for all of us. If we're making the decision of the change, it's probably going to happen.
Awesome. Yeah. And it just gives the people ready to make that change the resources they need to effectuate those changes.
Yeah. I think that's a great point too, Seth. And a lot of times we don't know what resources are out there. We don't know what exists in each county and each community. When we look at Vegas and we look at Reno and even Carson City, we see those robust resources that are right next door. We don't always have those options out in our rural regions. So this really helps them kind of get, when we do those assessments, to really identify what kind of resources do we need to get. And if they are potentially maybe outside the service area where they live, we can identify that, help with that transportation, things of that sort.
Awesome. Cool. How does the FASTT program collaborate with law enforcement agencies in Nevada to identify individuals who may benefit from diversion services?
Well, the collaboration with law enforcement really goes with the jails. We have to have their collaboration for us to get in there and be able to interview. Yeah. Without that collaboration, we're outside the jail. And so it's really that development of teaching our jails what this program looks like, how it works, that it is voluntary. These are the assessments that we use. They're all evidence-based, so we're not just picking things out of the sky. We standardize it really so that every jail kind of understands what we're doing, and that everybody that comes across our FAST program and decides to involve themselves with that program, they all kind of look the same, standardized assessments, screenings, things like that. We use the ORAS, which is the Ohio Risk Assessment, and that really is the R&R model kind of comes out of that with the risk, needs, and responsivity. With the risk really understanding is the who. So we explain this to our jails before we even go in what we're utilizing, so they're informed. And that's really the relationship that we have. We don't have relationships with courts or law enforcement out on the streets. This is really once you get arrested, here's the ticket. If you'd like to sign in and register and volunteer to do this program, and that's when we get involved. But that's really our relationship with our jails and the sheriffs, of course.
So with these jails that you have relationships with, are potential participants notified that this is a resource available to them upon being released?
Well, once they're released, the program really is done. We're done once they're released. Our goal is to get them when they get first arrested, and their maybe first or second day in their cell, and they say, "Yeah, I do want to meet with a FAST coordinator." We kind of pull them aside. We go through a smaller assessment at the beginning. The goal is to really see what they are, where they are at risk level for continuing that criminal activity, as well as some of those social determinants of health that may need to be, recognized that they're struggling with. And so once they do that volunteer, we set that appointment up. We usually work with jails on these are the days that we come in. Every once in a while, you might have a guard say, they might do well having that fast intervention. We don't intervene until they say they want to see us. We don't approach anybody until they say, I want to see you. And then we set that appointment up for them. We do that first initial assessment, which is about 35 to 45 minutes. Once we're done with that first initial assessment, we give that inmate some paperwork, like journaling items, things that can help them start processing things they just talked about. Because we know you can't leave somebody after having a large conversation about history and things like that just with their thoughts. And so it really just kind of allows them to put down things that worked for them in the past, things they did that they enjoy doing. And so we start getting them to think about happy things. Being arrested is not one of the things that, people really want to be faced with. And so once we do that interview and we're asking them some personal questions in the sense of, do you have a place to live? Do you have family? Things of that nature that can open up some wounds and stuff like that. So we really work to give them some things to help them kind of soothe and write down what they're going through. And I think that helps too in between that space of maybe seeing them again or before they get released. Now, of course, if they are going to court and they get provided a public defender, a lot of times we're out of the picture then because now they're moving on. A lot of times they just may be in jail for a few days, a week or so. We can continue working with them until they're released, and then we give them that case management. And when I say work with them, we're not doing therapy or anything like that. We're as a peer, as a community health worker, just going in and having conversations, understanding what's going on. If they are at that high risk level, that's a priority. So that's a person that we go back and we do a longer assessment on of the ORAS that really dives into some other issues into their life. And it really is just for us to be able to create that case plan. It's, we don't bring therapists on board or anything like that. It really is just that when you get out, here's what you can do for you.
So what are some of the common behavioral health issues that you do see in this program, and how do you address these issues?
I think when we want to talk about what behavioral health issues we see a gamut, but I think co-occurring is big. I work closely with a lot of our deflection and diversion programs, such as our MCRTs and our MOST teams and the FAST teams. And we're seeing a lot of dementia being a cause for a lot of things, that put people into crisis. So dementia has been a huge one, acting out and things like that with our seniors. But I think when we're looking at that gamut, it really is all those socio determinants of health that it's really overarching with our clients that volunteer for FAST.
People just need people, especially when you're struggling with something. And you could be that people for, and I'm sure you are on a daily basis, just to kind of help maybe redirect a little bit.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's why the paraprofession of community health workers and peers is becoming more and more and more common, because we know 51st in the state with mental health resources for our youth and our adults. So we're trying to go the opposite way, but we know we need workforce development. I know there's a lot of legislation going on with that. We need programs such as FASTT that are using community health workers and peers to help our people. I work in suicide prevention a lot, and it's just having somebody to talk to about what you're going through, and then potentially getting some resources. That's the key. If I know who to turn to, that's not going to judge me. There's not going to be stigma. I'm definitely going to try that more than I'm going to say, oh God, I can't talk to my family, or I can't talk to my employer. And so when we offer those people that are free, willing, want to have conversations with people just to help, that's important. And I think more and more with the way society is and so many climates being unsettled, it's hard to know who to talk to, who to reach out to. And so when we have programs such as this that can really help you navigate those resources that you may be scared to do or may not know that they exist, we're only benefiting our communities. And one thing when we're talking about our rural regions, and I'm a fan of our rural regions, they're close to my heart, we don't have courts set up like Clark and Washoe do.
Right.
We've got courts that have visiting, traveling judges, public defenders, district attorneys, and they come and go. Some of our counties don't even have court on Friday. They're closed Monday and Friday. Yeah. We've got to offer some things that can really benefit our rural regions, because we don't have out there what we have here in our urban cities. And I love them too, but I just see there's definitely a difference when we're looking at a lot of our agencies, such as our, justice agencies and things like that, don't get that same platform as we do in these urban cities.
Can you give us a brief walkthrough of the process of how the FAST program diverts individuals away from the criminal justice system and connects them with appropriate services?
That preliminary intake of them volunteering, saying, I want to be involved in this FAST program. What does that look like? Then having that coordinator really meet with that person, do that risk needs assessment that we do, as well as other needs assessments. And then determining if they're a priority or not. I think that's important to realize. We work with the jail staff to make sure that, if they are that high risk, we have to set those appointments up with them again to come back and do that larger assessment. So it's taken a little bit longer. So we set that up with that relationship that we already have with the jail. And then we conduct that in more depth risk assessment to really determine learning more about that client, what are their needs and responsibilities that need to be addressed. We also advise them if they do have in the jail, a lot of times groups are done in the jail, such as AA, other types of groups. We suggest that potentially maybe they join the AA group that's being put on by the jail. And most jails have those kind of groups just to kind of give the inmates something to talk about, work on themselves, start focusing on how potentially can I change myself before I get back out into the real world. And then we have lots and lots and lots of relationships with our outside providers. And that's really, really important that we have those relationships with our outside providers so that we know that if there is, we are going to give those resources out. We know exactly what that provider does, what they do work-wise, who they work with, have they worked with anybody incarcerated before. So we really build those relationships so that when we do release that, case plan for them, we know that what's on there is going to work for them. Nothing worse than giving out a resource that doesn't exist, that doesn't help them with the need that they have. And so I think that's really the key, is those relationships that we build, the FAST team builds, with those sometimes little resources out in those communities. The great thing about this is we use peers and community health workers a lot of times, and you wouldn't believe how many people get their life straightened out and say, how do I get into that position? How do I do that job? How do I get paid to help somebody? You helped me. Now I want to give back. So we see that a lot with people coming back and wanting to do this work. And so, with the 10 years that this program has been developed, you'll see that there's a couple of peers and community health workers that actually have been incarcerated and are now doing this work. We work closely with the jails because we know it's hard for them to navigate that piece to get back in the jails. But, with time and efforts throughout our state, we're really helping them to do this work. And being able to have lived experience in something and not having to have somebody tell their full entire story is so beneficial to them, not to have to relive. And I think that's one of the reasons why we don't talk about why you're arrested. We don't really care. We want to know about your history. Tell us about your history so that we can kind of write a psychosocial and understand what your future could look like with these resources potentially.
I love that part because, at first when you had said that it's presented to them when they first go into jail, right? I'm thinking, why? That doesn't make any sense. Why not give it to them as they're going out? But I could see that being their hope and their plan for the future.
I love that you use that term hope, because I think in anything, a lot of times in life, hope keeps us going. Without hope, what is there? You got to have a purpose. You got to have a hope. You got to have connections. I mean, we're humans. We were given 2 ears to listen, but we were given a mouth too to talk. And so having that dialect, I believe in that outlet of talking about things that are turmoil kind of inside of you, stress at work, stress about the driver who almost cut you off. Those things can compound and compound and compound. And when we don't have outlets to even just talk about, or why am I getting angry at that driver? It's no effect on me. How do we navigate some of those conversations within our head and stuff like that? And a lot of times it's having conversation with people who can relate and, help you kind of navigate. Yeah, that must have been awful. That seemed overwhelming.
If I can get that piece of paper and sit down and talk with someone and say, okay, hey, listen, you're here now, but what's going to happen, when you get out? Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what you can do. And that might make just a world of difference to how they're going to navigate jail, right? And their mental stability, but to know that they've got someone that they can talk to who's going to help them and that there is a future and that, this is just now. This is not the rest of your life. That's amazing. That probably makes a huge difference. So good for you.
It's awesome to hear that. But then we have the other side of that where they wouldn't have hope. They didn't, move through that illness. That potentially they could get out of the hospital, have nowhere to go, so when we think about hope really drives us as human beings to continue to move forward. And, one thing that I love about this program too is a choice doesn't define you. Choice doesn't make you that person.
Thank you for saying that.
Choice does not make you who you are. I think we make choices in moments of despair, of joyfulness, of however that might look. And so we have to remember that even our people that are incarcerated, choices don't define who they are as a person. They're a person beside that. And so if we can give them that voice to be able to share with our FAST team what they've gone through their whole entire life. I had the privilege of interning at the Public Defender's Office. And a program that I set up with Christine Brady, who now works for the AG's office, was I went in and did psychosocials on any inmate that I could get a scheduled appointment. And I wrote a story about their history of their life, who they were, what they did, all of that stuff. And I was able to give that to the lawyers so that they could see, and they would give those to the judges, and they could see this person has a past. They have a life. They are a person. This choice did not define them. And you're going to have to pay the price if there's a crime, but understanding that they're all humans. But I think that's something that we have to really step back and notice and be cognizant of to be able to walk into jails and treat people with that empathy. And they're a person.
And absolutely have it start there. And I'm feeling more and more that the judicial environment is moving more towards helping instead of just incarcerating. And I think that's definitely a smart move.
It kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, that choices don't define somebody. Mm-hmm. Truly, we don't work with those highly violent clients that are going to probably see a lot of time. We don't, because we know that our work here isn't going to make a difference in their life. They will be going on to further time served. And then really, when you think about many of the clients that really work with the FAST programs, we're problems related to their mental illness or their mental health. And so when we can identify that a lot of times, and that's why I say those choices don't define somebody, when we can identify that, that's when our work kind of starts. We know that there's probably some co-occurring issues here that probably caused the choice of you to make to be arrested, such as, we know somebody that's in recovery. They need that drug and they don't have money. Potentially a robbery could happen or a burglary or something. That choice was probably a choice that they wouldn't make as a normal person. But due to their circumstances and what they're involved with, they made that choice. And so those are the people we kind of really want to generate to, is there is help for you when you get out. There's help for behavioral health issues, for serious mental illness. There's medications. And so there's things that we don't tell them to do, but we can suggest, this worked for me. We balance that goal of understanding that it is choices, but there's things that made those choices happen. And so when we identify what those things were, whether it is a behavioral health issue, maybe there's not a job, there's things that we can help navigate as a state, as a program, that when they get out, that they can reach out to those resources and then potentially get a job, or learn how to do an interview and get your resume created, get your driver's license, get your social security card, all those things that sometimes, and when you're released from jail, you have a certain amount of time to get a lot of things done. And that can be very overwhelming to someone who has just now been released from being in a small cell and eating food that you're told you need to eat. And so having somebody say, get a hold of your human resources or your health and human resources, HHS, in your county, they can help you navigate some of these things. Some people wouldn't even know to go there.
So when they are released, they still have you or FAST as a point of contact to kind of help them through that. So it's not like you do this assessment, you say this is what you need, and then you disappear. They can still reach out to you, but again, it's them reaching out to
empowering them.
Program.
And most of our FAST coordinators sit like in Partnership Douglas, Partnership Carson City, CCC. So you'll get to know those programs already. So absolutely, there's somebody you might know in there. We've got a great FAST coordinator that is right here in Carson City. Her name is JD Powers. She's awesome at what she does. And she works at Partnership Carson City. And so when they're released, she'll say, come by and see me. I can help you get your driver's license. I can help you. It's not a promise inside the jail, but when you are released, if you want to reach out to Partnership Carson City. JD sits in there. They'll, JD, there's that relationship already made, and she can help them get those IDs, give them directions, give them bus passes. Maybe they need a gas card. There's housing that might need to be found. We can get them connected with fish and then move from there. So there really is that opportunity after knowing where your FAST coordinators sit. Like in Lyon County, they sit at the health services. And so I think that there's always that opportunity for that outreach, but our goal is to empower them to reach in. You reach out to us.
Right.
We're giving you the power to own your life. Reach out to us if you need help. We're always here for you.
While we pause for a quick break, I'd like to extend a special invitation to our listeners. I'll Allow It Nevada goes beyond just being a certified legal education podcast. It's crafted with inclusivity in mind, welcoming all who are interested. Our goal is to foster connections with communities and offer valuable insights into the Nevada judiciary. If you found our episodes engaging, we encourage you to spread the word and share this experience with your friends and family. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Let's talk about the program handbook.
Ooh, I think that's the thing that this work group that has been meeting for, I'd probably say 5 to 6 years. I've been at this job for 2 years. My predecessor, Jessica Bress, she worked with these teams probably 2 to 3 years before I even came in and started really kind of working with Carson City to develop this FAST program. And through that moving and, the pains of growing, the pains of understanding data collection so that we can get funding and, promote this program and things like that. One of the things that the AG's office really wanted us to do was create a handbook. And so we took on the challenge and said, absolutely. But I think the thing we're proud of with this handbook is that it was multiple voices from multiple counties across Nevada that came together to build this book. So we've got counties that have tiny little most-like programs that don't run them full-fledged like we would here in Carson City or Washoe, but they still have a little program. And so all of those voices came to the table to talk about how a program could look. And so it enables any counties or communities wanting to invest or develop a FAST program, the ability to do so with very minimal resources and with maximum resources. And so we really kind of identified all those little nuances that potentially our rural regions may not be able to, do, but that our big urban cities can do. And so the buy-in from all the counties was like, yeah, we want to do this. Let's make it the voice of Nevada. Awesome. And so we're able to call it the statewide because we did bring in so many people. And the voices we brought, we had a 2-day retreat, a reading retreat. And so we read this from cover to cover to cover to cover to cover a couple times and really dissected what we needed to change, what the nuances that needed to look a little bit different. And now we get to move forward and the state will now do a day read with us. They'll come in, they'll read along with us. One thing I do want to mention that we're we're really proud of as well is this group that's built this book. We've been meeting for a little over 2 years now. The AG's office has been at every single one of our meetings. And for a while, we were meeting twice a month to really dial down because we knew we needed to finish this book. Can't have it linger too long. But their voices are at the table as well. And so having them at the table really allowed us to kind of speak freely, but then them able to say, okay, now how does that look? And we were able to really have that dialect together. As well as we had state people join AD, the ADSD coordinator comes. So she can kind of make sure that disability and that aging piece for our seniors is really, tightened up in there. And so I think it was just such a great collaboration for quite a while. It just didn't get, built in 1 month and we built this book. We put a lot of time and effort into it. And when we weren't meeting as a group, me and Dr. Snyder, Dr. Dare were in the back writing, making sure that for our data collection, what we wanted to put in the book, because we do work with CMIS. So we have to make sure, due to HIPAA and all of those things, what kind of information that we put in that. And so it really has been a labor of love and passion for this program to build that FAST. And we talk about every nuance that you could ever imagine of this program, how it works. We talk about the assessments that we utilize. We utilize the Columbia as our suicide screener. We do a suicide screener. And if that person, registrates high on that suicide, we are going to let the jail staff know that we've got somebody here at a high level for the suicide assessment. Statewide, we utilize the Columbia, so everybody speaks the same language when we're defining low, medium, and high. And that's just, that's an evidence-based screener, but that safety piece needs to be, that's pretty much the only thing we really tell the officers if they're high for suicide. And we got the approval from the AG's office that that's okay, because if you were a common citizen or you were a jail cellmate, you would want that law enforcement or that correctional officer to know that I'm concerned about this person. So it dials into every assessment that we do, how we define high, medium, low. We explain that in the book too. It's a little over 100 pages. Anybody that worked on that book or whose voice was in that book is notated in that as well. So I think we did a really good job, and I think we're going to do the program here in Nevada a good justice just by having that book. I anticipate other states reaching out once it's published to talk to us about how we do these programs, because they are relatively new. I feel like Nevada's a pioneer in a lot of things, and we just kind of keep it to ourselves though. We're pioneers in things, but we're like, we make programs, we develop them, we utilize them, and they work. And now we get to share this with the world. So we're excited.
That is exciting. It sounds like a lot of care was taken in crafting this handbook to be inclusive and to be a very robust guide. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking.
Can you discuss any challenges or obstacles that the FAST program has encountered since its inception, and how have you guys overcome these?
So I'm going to go back to the data word. When we started this program, you and I, we all know that you need that data to tell a story, whether it's quantitative, qualitative. You need that to show that this program is working, that we are making a difference in other people's lives. And so we kind of, that was, I think, the biggest challenge was, what data do we want to collect? How do we collect it? Where do we collect it? How do we make sure that PHI and HIPAA are being enforced? This information isn't to share with other people, but it's still, even though we don't talk about cases, none of that stuff, it's still important private information. And so working with BitFocus and CMIS, we built a couple different platforms, but it was cumbersome at first. And so we navigated that and removed some of the issues that were making it harder. And I think we have it now streamlined to where anybody can pick up this program. If they wanted to use CMIS, they could work with BitFocus to bring that platform alive. But it's really great. And I think that was our biggest challenge. And then, making sure that people were collecting that data, that always can be a hindrance as well. But I think now after 2 years, there's still a couple of hiccups in that avenue, but I think we've got it pretty well dialed. As well as, the buy-in from the jails. That's a hard thing. We want to come in, we want to talk to your inmates. We really had to explain to our sheriffs, this is what we're doing. These are the things we're going to be asking. This is our lane, and we're not going outside of it. And so once we have that buy-in with the sheriff's department and the jail employees, then getting in there, and once they saw the work that we did and what we were doing, Now it's pretty easy. We stay within our lane on the hours and things like that. But they understand that the process and result has been beneficial to them.
What role do the judges play in supporting the FAST program's efforts? And how can they effectively collaborate with the program to enhance this impact?
That's a really good question. I think knowledge of the program right now, I think that's something that probably there's not a lot of knowledge for our judges that this program exists because of our limitations and where our lane starts and ends. I would love to collaborate with them. Knowing that potentially you volunteering and not having to be told you're going to go to specialty court and then get in that specialty court, I think that could make a difference, but there is no mandate that they're going to follow that case that we're putting out there for them. And so I think with judges understanding how this program works, we tell our inmates, tell your public defender that you volunteer for FAST. That's about as far as we can go in that realm, because it is a voluntary program that I'm now wanting to change my life. Potentially, if that can be part of their hearing and make a difference, that could be something that we look at further down. Maybe if they have volunteered for FAST and maybe they are going to have a sentence, what does that look like? Maybe because they are saying, I want to take steps to, change my life. And I've been going to groups in jail and these kind of things. Maybe that can make a difference. I don't know. I'm not a specialist, but I think those are some of the ways that we really can help work with the judicial system. Understanding what our lane looks like and potentially maybe, next level programs being built could benefit these people even more so. We don't have enough mental health services within our jail. And I think that's a big, huge piece, with my work, I always get calls from sheriffs in the jail saying, hey, I've got this guy here that needs to be inpatient. We have lack of beds in our state for inpatient. And so if we can develop these programs that can help them, and the jails can kind of be, or the judges and the courts can be privy to that we are working with people, and they're making that decision to want to change, maybe that can make a difference. And I think, with time, I think this is a great start of introducing these programs. I know some of the public defenders know about this program. So there's some attorneys that know about the program, but I don't know how high up it's gone with the courts, with the judges and things like that. But the group that's working on this would love to be able to work closely with all of the judicial systems, just in understanding that if we can divert and we can keep that recidivism level low, it's a win-win for all of us.
Right.
So Cherylyn, are there any specific success stories or outcomes from the FAST program that you'd like to share with us to kind of just demonstrate its effectiveness?
I would love to share some stories. I have a personal one myself. When I started this job 2 years ago, roughly, I knew about this program, but I wasn't really completely familiar with it, but it was on my scope of work. And so I went and sat in on a couple of the different sit-ins. So I went to each county and sat with them for the day. And one particular county that I was in, we had an inmate sit down and he looked straight at the coordinator and said, I know this program. It worked for me before. I only have one stipulation. I can't reside in the same county or the same community that I've been living in. It's too hard for me to navigate. If you can get me moved to a different area, a different county, a different community, I know I'll be okay. But I got to leave the surroundings that I'm in. I mean, that was literally what he said. And I was just like, wow. That to me was so powerful to hear an inmate say, this program works. To me, it gave me chills just to hear somebody sit down. And he almost had tears in his eyes, like, this is not where I want to be. That choice again, of that situation that I was in brought me back here. And I don't want to come back here again. So just move me and I'll be okay. And so that was pretty cool. We've also had one of our FAST coordinators who did this work for quite a while before me taking this job. She created another program working with inmates that were just incarcerated. If they have kids, family members, getting in there, talking about that. What do your kids need? Where do they go to school? Like, how can I help navigate that? A pregnant female, helping her navigate the court systems and things like that. And so she really looked at that family aspect. And Sheriff Furlong was like, yes, I want it. Bring it in. And so now she's working with inmates on that piece because this can damage a family. that choice can damage a family. So when we can help navigate that outside for their youth, just making sure that they're, going to school and doing things of the such that they should. So that was a program that she developed on her own, working with Carson City Human Health Services as well as Partnership Carson City. So she's been doing this program about 3 or 4 months. She's just getting done writing the policies and procedures, but she will be going into the jails working with our family members who are incarcerated with kids on the outside.
It's like that snowball effect, right? It's just going to snowball. We're just going to keep realizing more needs. You had talked about earlier how you have seen some people go through this program and change their lives and actually reach out to you and say, hey, I want to be a part of this. It's so empowering to me. I want to help people. And I always find that to be such a full circle and just a really beautiful story where you can take your struggles and then be able to help someone else with what you've experienced and connect on a completely different level.
Yeah. And the great thing about that, too, when they come back and want to become a peer or community health worker, the training that they get is so awesome. I mean, we train our community health workers and peer here in the state. We have a certified board for those programs and those certifications. So we make sure we stay, they stay in their lanes, but we teach them really well how to do that and how to navigate systems and things like that. And I think that just even builds them up more. And then there's continuing education through that. Right now, with legislation really pushing these paraprofessionals, which I'm so excited about because we do know that's our next line of defense. We're not going to have enough LCSWs, enough psychiatrists in this state. I wish I could say, and I have hope that we will, but we all know the truth. And so having these paraprofessionals that really have lived experience can really make a difference in how you sit with somebody. And the resources that I use, maybe they'll work for you. I'm not telling you have to do them, but this is what I did. And I'm doing this job now and I love it. And they'll be like, okay, so what did you do? And sometimes you can even just navigating that conversation too without having to explain too much about my history. That empathy comes a lot easier and smoother, and there's less sympathy put into that, more empathy. So yeah, I think that is truly sometimes the end result of what we want is somebody to make a life worthy, volunteer, do this kind of work, and we're working on pay parity for these positions to pay them a living wage. I think that's important. We're all worthy.
Yes.
And so those are things that we're working on with legislation for our community health workers and peer who run these programs, is making sure that they're identified and that they're, they can make a wage too to live by.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think it's a real testament to the effectiveness of the program and just having peers to be able to speak to. And yeah, the fact that people get out of your program and then want to participate in it as a volunteer is really amazing.
So what are some of the future goals and initiatives for Nevada FASTT program? How do you envision it evolving to better service individuals and behavioral health needs in the criminal justice system?
These programs can really serve as that bellwether for behavioral health in our state, really help identify those people that need higher level potentially. And our FAST programs are really seeing an increase in clients with comorbid issues, behavioral health, dementia, any kind of IDDD, substance misuse and things like that. And so really making sure that we align with all the issues that are going on with our state is really, really important. And I think hopefully in the future, working with the justice system to be potentially maybe that part of a little vein or an arm of potentially a resource that they could utilize. Sometimes courts will just mandate, a month or a week, and they'll just stay in the local jail. If they can get hooked up with FASTT for multiple weeks and things like that, making sure that, we're identifying what resources are needed when they get out, that's a way we can work with them too. Making sure that we continue those groups inside of our jails. The FAST group puts on the AAs. We also do some other groups that are mentioned in the FAST handbook that we put on. That only helps them for when they get out. If they're learning those tools while they're in, how great would that be when they get out to even take those tools with them? We're starting to right now, if we do have somebody that's been released that was a volunteer for FAST, we introduce them to the MOST team. We tell them about that MOST team. If you're struggling the next time, reach out to the MOST team. They can help you and they'll come to you. And so we're even giving them for the counties that have those MOST teams. And so there's that already. We're building those relationships for those teams that those diversion and deflection teams can work together keeping our people out of jail, And so I think some of those are the things that I see for the future, really working on navigating some of those diagnoses, such as dementia. How do you work with somebody that has dementia? Getting trainings for our community health workers and peers. Sometimes they just need to be heard.
I just love that you not only give them the hope, but you also give them the opportunity for a new beginning, right, when they get out, because it doesn't, as you said, have to define them. I think that's amazing.
A heartfelt appreciation to Cherylyn for joining us today, as well as to everyone who has tuned in to this episode. Before we wrap up, here are a couple of quick important reminders. For continuing legal education credit, be sure to complete a certificate of attendance and email it to jepodcast@nvcourts.nv.gov. If you have any questions, topic suggestions, or comments, we welcome your input. Please email them to jepodcast@nvcourts.nv.gov. We value and look forward to hearing from our listeners. Stay tuned for more episodes of I'll Allow It Nevada, released every first and third Friday of the month. This is Seth Easley signing off. Take care, Nevada.